Every January, millions of people set resolutions. By February, most have quietly abandoned them. The gym memberships go unused, the meditation apps get deleted, and the journal sits blank on the bedside table. This isn't a failure of willpower. It's a failure of structure. In the yogic tradition, there's a word for a practice that doesn't rely on motivation, a practice that becomes as natural as brushing your teeth, a practice that transforms you not through intensity but through consistency. That word is sadhana. If you've ever wondered what sadhana actually means, how it's different from meditation or exercise, why spiritual teachers from ancient sages to Sadhguru emphasize it so heavily, and most importantly, how you can start your own daily sadhana without burning out in 2 weeks, you're in the right place. This is a practical guide, not a lecture. Let's start with the most searched question. What does sadhana actually mean? The word comes from Sanskrit. Its root is sadh, which means to accomplish, to complete, or to strive toward a goal. In the yogic context, sadhana is any disciplined spiritual practice undertaken with the aim of inner transformation. It's not just meditation. It's not just yoga asanas. It's not just chanting or breathing. Sadhana is the container that holds all of these together. Think of it as a daily appointment with your own inner well-being. The ancient texts describe sadhana as the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, not in terms of career or money, but in terms of consciousness. It's the toolkit for becoming a more centered, aware, and peaceful human being. Now, here's where many people get confused. Is sadhana the same as meditation? The answer is no. But meditation can be part of your sadhana. Meditation is a specific technique, sitting in silence, focusing on the breath, a mantra, or simply observing the mind. Sadhana is the broader framework. Your sadhana might include meditation, but it might also include yoga postures, breathing exercises like pranayam, chanting, reading sacred texts, journaling, or even walking mindfully in nature. Sadhguru describes sadhana as everything you do to align yourself with the source of creation. Another teacher might call it the daily polishing of the mirror of the heart. The specific definition varies, but the essence remains. Sadhana is the committed, repeated effort to go within. Why is daily sadhana so important? This is one of the most searched phrases, and the answer goes beyond spirituality into basic human psychology. Your mind is a creature of habit. Every day, without sadhana, you wake up and immediately get pulled into the external world. Notifications, emails, family demands, news cycles, social media algorithms designed to hijack your attention. Before you know it, the day is over and you haven't spent a single minute truly with yourself. Sadhana is the counterforce. It's the one time of day where you deliberately turn inward, not to escape the world, but to build the inner stability to engage with it more effectively. Spiritual teachers across traditions say the same thing in different words. Without daily practice, spiritual growth remains a concept. With daily practice, it becomes a lived reality. What happens when you do sadhana every day? This is the question behind the questions. What are the actual benefits? People who commit to daily sadhana report a range of changes that accumulate over time. In the first few weeks, you might notice better sleep, less reactivity to small irritations, and a subtle sense of calm that wasn't there before. After a few months, many report improved focus, more emotional resilience, and a growing ability to observe their own thoughts rather than being swept away by them. After a year or more, the benefits deepen. A sense of purpose that doesn't depend on external achievements, a natural reduction in anxiety, and what many describe as a quiet inner joy. The key word is accumulate. Sadhana is not a quick fix. It's a slow, deep, permanent transformation. How long should sadhana be? This is one of the most practical questions, and the answer might surprise you. It's not about 2 hours at dawn. For beginners, consistency matters infinitely more than duration. Sadhguru has said that even 12 to 15 minutes of focused practice every day is more transformative than 2 hours once a week. The nervous system learns through repetition, not intensity. If you can only commit to 20 minutes, start there. If you have an hour, wonderful. But never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. A short sadhana done daily will change you. A long sadhana done occasionally will frustrate you. Start small, show up every day, and let the duration grow naturally as your commitment deepens. When is the best time for sadhana? The yogic tradition is nearly unanimous on this. The hours just before sunrise, known as Brahma Muhurta, are the most conducive for spiritual practice. This is roughly 3:40 am to 5:40 am, depending on the season and location. The reasoning is both practical and energetic. At that hour, the world is quiet. Your phone isn't buzzing. Your family is asleep. But there's a deeper dimension that Sadhguru explains in a way few others have. At that specific time, the Earth's rotation is transitioning relative to the Sunday. The planet is moving from one cycle to the next. In that transition, there is a certain boundary that gets broken in the planet's energy field. When you practice at that time, it becomes easier for you to break your own boundaries. The inner walls you've built, the limitations you've accepted, become just a little more porous. If waking at that hour feels impossible for your life circumstances, don't use it as an excuse to do nothing. The second best time is whenever you can consistently show up. A morning practice is beautiful, but a consistent evening practice is far better than an abandoned dawn intention. The key is not the clock. The key is the commitment. How do you start sadhana if you're a complete beginner? This is the question that deserves the most attention. Start with a clear, simple structure that removes decision fatigue. Your sadhana doesn't need to be elaborate. It needs to be repeatable. A beginner sadhana might look like this: 5 minutes of gentle stretching or yoga to wake up the body, 5 minutes of deep breathing or a simple pranayam like alternate nostril breathing, 5 minutes of meditation, simply watching the breath, and 2 minutes of setting an intention or offering gratitude. That's 17 minutes total. Do this at the same time, in the same place, every day. The structure is your friend. It removes the daily negotiation of what should I do today, and lets your mind relax into the practice. Now, let's address the different types of sadhana, because this is what people search for when they're trying to figure out what fits their temperament. In the yogic tradition, there are multiple paths. Karma sadhana is the path of action, where your work itself becomes the practice, done with full awareness and without attachment to results. Bhakti sadhana is the path of devotion, where chanting, prayer, and emotional surrender to the divine are central. Jnana sadhana is the path of knowledge, where self-inquiry and contemplation of truth are the main tools. Kriya sadhana involves specific energy-based practices like those taught in Isha's inner engineering or by other yogic traditions. Most people naturally gravitate toward one path or a blend. The test is simple. What leaves you feeling more centered, not more agitated? That's your path. What are the most common mistakes people make when starting sadhana? Number 1. Setting expectations too high, too fast. You won't see lights after 3 days. You won't attain enlightenment in a week. Spiritual practice is a marathon, not a sprint. And the mind that demands immediate results is the very mind that needs to be trained. Number 2. Comparing your practice to others. Your neighbor does 2 hours of asanas. Your colleague meditates for 45 minutes. Good for them. Your sadhana is yours. Protect it from comparison. Number 3. Skipping days and then quitting entirely out of guilt. If you miss a day, or even a week, simply begin again. The practice is always waiting. Guilt is not a spiritual tool. Another common question: do you need a guru or teacher to have a sadhana? The honest answer is that a teacher can accelerate your growth immensely. But you can begin without one. Simple meditation, breath awareness, and mindful movement don't require initiation. They require commitment. That said, at a certain point, most serious practitioners find that a living teacher or a structured program like inner engineering provides the depth and precision that a self-guided practice can lack. Sadhguru often says that sadhana is most effective when it's a consecrated practice, one that has been handed down through a lineage. But don't let the search for the perfect teacher become an excuse to never begin. Start with what you have. The teacher appears when the student is ready. What about the physical space for sadhana? This matters more than people realize. Ideally, you want a dedicated space, even if it's just a corner of your bedroom. A cushion or mat that's only used for practice. A small altar with a candle, incense, or an image that inspires you. When you sit in that same spot every day, the space itself becomes charged with the energy of your practice. Over time, just sitting there will help your mind settle faster. Keep it clean. Keep it simple. Don't let laundry pile up on your meditation cushion. The outer order supports inner stillness. This isn't superstition. It's basic environmental psychology applied to spiritual practice. What role does the body play in sadhana? In the yogic understanding, the body is not an obstacle to spiritual growth. It's the vehicle. A stiff, neglected body makes meditation harder. A body that's been moved and breathed into is more comfortable sitting still. This is why most traditional sadhanas include some form of physical practice. Yoga asanas, walking meditation, or prostrations. Even 5 minutes of conscious movement before sitting can change the quality of your meditation. The body and mind are a single system. You can't calm one while ignoring the other. If you sit down to meditate and your back hurts and your hips are tight, your meditation will be about your discomfort, not your inner world. Move first, then sit. What about food and sadhana? The connection is direct. The yogic tradition classifies food into 3 categories. Sattvic, pure, light, promotes clarity. Rajasic, stimulating, promotes restlessness. And tamasic, heavy, promotes dullness. For a sustained sadhana, a predominantly sattvic diet is recommended. Fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and dairy. Light, easily digestible meals. Avoid heavy, oily, or processed foods before practice. Avoid alcohol and recreational substances, not as a moral rule, but because they cloud the very awareness you're trying to cultivate. You don't need to become a monk overnight, but notice how different foods affect your practice. Eat in a way that supports your sadhana, and your sadhana will support the rest of your life. How do you stay consistent when motivation inevitably fades? This is the make or break question. Motivation is a wave. It rises and falls. Discipline is the shore that holds steady regardless. The most effective strategy is to attach your sadhana to an existing habit. Do it immediately after brushing your teeth. Do it right after your morning coffee. When the new practice is anchored to something you already do without thinking, it becomes part of the chain. The second strategy is accountability. Tell a friend. Join a community. Knowing that someone else is practicing at 6 a.m. gives you a reason to show up on the days when your own willpower is weak. Sadhana is personal, but it doesn't have to be solitary. What about the days when you just don't feel like it? This is where the real transformation happens. Everyone can practice when they feel inspired. The practice on the days you're tired, bored, resistant, or distracted is the practice that actually changes you. On those days, lower the bar. If your usual sadhana is 30 minutes, do 10. If you can't meditate, just sit quietly and breathe. The victory is in showing up, not in performing perfectly. Sadhguru has spoken about this. Sadhana is not about feeling good during the practice. It's about doing what is needed for your growth, regardless of how you feel. The feelings are temporary. The growth is permanent. Can sadhana create negative experiences? This is rarely discussed but important. As you go deeper, old emotional patterns may surface. Buried memories might arise during meditation. You might feel more sensitive or raw for a period. This is not a sign that something is wrong. In the yogic view, this is purification. The practice is bringing up what was already there, so it can be released. If the intensity feels overwhelming, slow down. Shorten the practice. Talk to a teacher. But don't interpret discomfort as failure. A wound that's healing often hurts before it feels better. The same is true of the mind and heart. What is the relationship between sadhana and the rest of your life? This is the ultimate point. Sadhana is not an escape from life. It's training for life. The calm you cultivate on the cushion is meant to be carried into traffic, into difficult conversations, into moments of stress and uncertainty. The awareness you develop during morning practice should be present when you're with your children, your partner, your colleagues. If your sadhana makes you feel peaceful only when you're alone and irritated when you're with people, something is misaligned. True sadhana blurs the line between practice and life until every moment becomes an opportunity for awareness. The goal isn't to retreat from the world. It's to engage with it from a place of unshakable inner stability. If you're still unsure about starting, here's what I want you to know. You don't need special clothes, expensive equipment, or a perfect understanding of yogic philosophy. You need a decision. Decide that your inner well-being matters enough to dedicate a small portion of your day to it. That's the essence of sadhana. The Sanskrit root, sadh, also implies effort. The effort is not about straining. It's about consistently choosing to turn inward, even when the world pulls you outward. Start tomorrow. Wake up 20 minutes earlier. Sit in the same spot. Breathe. Observe. Repeat. Don't evaluate after 3 days. Give it 40 days. The yogic tradition calls this a mandala, a complete cycle, the minimum time for a practice to take root in your system. 40 days. That's the invitation. Everything shared today draws from the ancient yogic tradition, the teachings of sages across centuries, and the practical experience of millions of practitioners worldwide. Sadhana is not a luxury for monks and mystics. It's a practical tool for anyone who wants to live with more clarity, more peace, and more purpose. Start small. Be consistent. Create a dedicated space. Move your body before sitting still. Anchor your practice to an existing habit. Don't judge your experience. Give it 40 days. If this video answered your questions about sadhana, hit that like button so others searching for the same guidance can find it. Drop a comment below. Do you already have a sadhana? What does it look like? And if you're starting one tomorrow, tell me. I'd love to hear what you're committing to. Subscribe and turn on notifications. There is more to explore on this path. And I'll see you in the next one.